Hi guys, I'm Kirkland Big, one of the co-founders of the Standard Gauge Module Association. Jim Kelly and I started the association back in 2006 because we want to promote the hobby of operating standard gauge trains. When we started, Mike's Train House was producing standard gauge track, or I should say they were sourcing it from within the United States from a company called EBR Products. They were located in New Jersey, but then decided to change their source to factory in China. We were pretty concerned that the quality would drop, and I think many of you know that it did. Chris Bogus and I bought all the tooling and many of the supplies from EBR Products back in 2009, and we've been making standard gauge track ever since. So what I'd like to do today is give you a little tour around the shop. I'm going to make some straight track, I'm going to make some curved track because I just thought it'd be fun for you to see how we do it. All the tooling was made in the United States by the owners of a company called Antique Trains in New Jersey about 50 years ago. It's been in continuous use ever since then. There's tooling for stamping out ties. There's tooling for producing railings. The track pins are actually lathe turned off-site at an engineering company in New Jersey. And the insulators are cut out of a fiber material used for high voltage transformers also in the United States. The rails are made on our tooling. We take it to what's called a roll forming plant, where a strip of flat tin-plated steel is run through a machine and turned to the rail shape. Likewise, the ties start as a strip of tin-plated steel. They're run through a machine that cuts and stamps them into the tie shape, and then they're given a black oxide coating. So to do that, generally speaking, we run about 10 miles of rail at a time. The ties, we produce 100,000 pieces. Track pins, 100,000 pieces, and insulators, 100,000 pieces. That's the only way that we can make track and keep it affordable for everyone. So I'm going to start out by making some straight track. This is the original machinery. It's 50 years old, and we've got it all fired up here. Normally we are hearing protection, but for the illustration today, no gloves and no hearing protection. Okay, so this is get a little view of the shop here. The machine to my right is the machine that's used to make straight track. And we'll be giving a demonstration on that. Up on the shelves in front and beside me here, every type of curved track has to have 3 different radii of rails. So each one of these boxes has a different radii, and we sell 5 different radii of curved track, so we have all those rails up there. We also have a couple radii of rails that we supply to people who want to make 5 rail tracks, so they're a little bit different. As you can see, we have a lot of ties, we have a lot of rails, we have lots of track pins and lots of insulators. So let's go ahead and make a piece of track. So this is the original 50-year-old machinery for making straight track. The process is to put a tie on each one of these stamping plates. I used to think about how many times this has been done over the last 50 years. Tens of thousands of pieces of track, that's for sure. I think since 2009, when Chris and I bought the company, we've probably put about 100,000 ties through here, and used up maybe 20 miles of rails. I'll put the center rail in. Now, each one of these insulators has to be added by hand, individually, between the rail and the tie. It's a little bit awkward when you first start, but after couple thousand pieces of track, it becomes pretty easy. So I'm just going to go, this is a 13 tie, 36-inch straight, one of our most common pieces of track. And you'll notice there's no actual measurement going on. This is all done by just eyeballing it. You can go back and make little adjustments if you have to. Okay, we're going to fire this thing up and we're going to run the rail through it. There we go, 136-inch piece of track. Okay, most of our rails come cut to length from the rolling plant. So we have 7, 14, 36, and 40-inch rails. And Chris and I have even had 100-inch rails made up for projects that we want to do on our own. If a customer needs something a little different, we do have a cutting machine here. And it's one of those, it's got an abrasive disc. And we can set the wood block up any distance from that disc that's necessary. And we've cut rails anywhere from 2 inches out to 100 inches on this. Once you have rails that are the right length, then they need to be pinned. And the track pin is kind of a neat little machine. So it was originally designed for Lionel track pins, which are a little tiny bit smaller than ours. Ours are 0.005 of an inch oversized, so they're pretty tight. So we usually set the pin by hand by putting it in this metal block, taking the rail, and just pushing it in like that till it's flush. At that point, you can see you have exactly the right amount of track pin. Half the track pin is exposed, and half is within inside the rail. We always provide the rails with these track pins secured to the rail so they don't move when you try to put the track together. And that's what this machine does. It has a couple of pneumatic cylinders. We can lay the rail in like this. I have a slight angle here because the action of the pin being put together tends to distort the end of the rail otherwise. So we're going to activate the lever, and you can see these two side pins come together, and that's what actually makes that little indentation in the rail that engages the groove in the track pin. Okay, so here's another 50-year-old piece of machinery. It's kind of neat. This is what we use to make curved track and also some of the shorter lengths of straight track, like 7 inches and 14 inches. It works much the same way as the other machine, except you can actually see what it's doing because it's all manually operated. So the first step is to put ties, once again, over the forms here. And then we're going to take the rail. We have 3 different sizes of rails here. This is a 57 track, so there's an outside, center, and inside track. Each one's slightly different. Obviously, the outside track's a little bit longer, and the center track is somewhere in between. So we'll take one rail, and we're going to place that in the machine here. And then once again, we have to put one of these insulators between the rail and tie. So that's done by hand. And we just got to roll that in like this. Okay, and then we'll put the inside rail, which if you look here, you can see that it's shorter and also a little bit tighter radius. But when you put it over here, the inside of the circle comes out flush, just exactly right. So obviously, there are a lot of calculations that went on to make that happen. Okay, so this machine actually does 3 operations at once. It folds the tabs over on the 2 outside rails and also and crimps them, and then the center rail just gets folded over. And we're going to do that 1 station at a time. So like that, make sure everything's all lined up. This handle comes around, and usually I like to do 2 strikes. One is a compression, and then one like that. And if Janet will zoom in here, she can see that there's the crimp, and there's the fold, and there's the crimp. And we're going to do that 4 more times. After a little while, you actually get a feel when things are going correctly. If there's any resistance or if anything sounds a little funny, you know you got to check to make sure the rail's good. So that's a finished piece of curve track. That's our 57 radius, which was one of our new products to fit exactly between the 42 and the 72 and give you that 7 1/4 inch track spacing that's so important to prevent collision of our modern era standard gauge trains. Okay, so I hope you all know that you're welcome to visit the shop once we get past this coronavirus. Anyone who's been immunized or is immune is welcome to come anytime. If you'd like to make track, we've had a couple SGMA members come and make track in the shop because they had special projects. We welcome people to do that. I always consider this part of our SGMA organization. So that's the essence of making track, and if you have any questions, I'll be available to answer them. Thanks.